deeply rooted Rakhine culture, the indigenous culture of the land here, is so evident if you go walking around in Rakhine State, from southern Rakhine State to northern. You can almost trip over Buddhist ruins nearly everywhere, in rice fields, ruined temples and stupas and pagodas and so on. You have personal shrines there, you have statues that are farmer finds in his field by digging for a well. There's so many ruins. Myanmar just being one place of many, many. Caves that are carved with all kinds of Buddhist motifs and Buddhist carved in them here, there, and everywhere. It is so readily apparent that it is a deeply rooted Buddhist culture there. And strangely, groups like Human Rights Watch, Fortify Right, Amnesty International, ever even have an overview, never even one sentence about the Rakhine culture, the Arakan Kingdom, people or so on. Speaking of indigenous people, we went to 3 Myo villages, Myo, M-R-O. Those people I also interviewed in September. Myo villages are all like temporary villages now because they've had to move out. They have people, they would prefer to live in the hills, but they've had to move out the people near the road. They have to be next to the road because they are so frightened of Bengalis. And so many of them have been killed by Bengalis even before the 25th attacks, just at random throughout year after year after year. Groups of them out farming, out fishing, doing things, collecting firewood, collecting drinking water. Groups of them are killed, even 8 at a time, as you know. What was it? August 4th last year, 8 Myo in a group were killed. Actually, you could call it 9 because one of the women was 8 months pregnant when she was killed there. So why not just call it 9? And they're so peaceful and mellow, they don't have even weapons to defend themselves. And, just come in and just hack them to death. So they say, we refuse to go back to the hill villages until there are no Bengalis. But they're too afraid to live there now. ARSA, when it travels, if it travels through the native mountains because they're so dense. You could have a whole army of people only 10 feet from you. You wouldn't even know it. It's so rugged under the jungle coverage there. But that's where these people live. So they're temporarily they're living there. They hope someday, I think, to move back to their high villages. There's the fisherman. Let me talk about him. So the day before we went to come on and say there was a terrorist act right there, half a mile away on the river. A group of 6 fishermen were fishing, got in a boat from the riverside, catching fish, and all of a sudden 30 or something Bengalis in the forest with machetes and swords and everything. 5 of them run away, but one of them was in the water quite far by the time he got to the shore. And he has huge wounds on his head, his arms, his legs, but especially right here. The whole sword was plunged into him, and it got caught between the ribs, and that's the only reason why he's living now. Because the sword blade went this way, ribs, and got stuck. If it went this way, it would have gone through his ribs and killed him. So they thought he was dead and they ran. He himself had to pull that sword out of his own chest. And the other fishermen came back, they called for the police, army. They transported him to Manga Hospital, which is a 4-hour drive over rough road, the worst roads you'll see up there. 4 hours, and we saw him in the hospital. He's in great pain, intense pain, just all over the place. But lucky to be alive. Very lucky, because his wife and daughter were there also sitting by his side. 3-4 weeks ago, there was another group of fishermen killed at 6 of them into the hospital. So these kinds of attacks go on and on and on. And security forces up here.
security forces up there are now worried that violence, that many army are being called from those places to come down to maintain order in towns in case of demonstrations. So they say, quietly, they say the police forces, security forces are probably temporarily only 1/2 or less than what they should, what they were. So they're afraid that the terrorists can take advantage of even more to do some attacks right now. I want to talk about police posts. Okay, so you hear reference to, the police post was stormed by the Bengalis in the middle of the night. But what is a police post? I had to show these guys. It's not a police station where there's like it is in the West or so, but it's usually an area at the end of the village. If there's a little hill, it's there because they need to see, but sometimes it's flat. All like sandbags there that they could hide behind while shooting. And barbed wire, anything they could use as a repellent. Bamboo was often used, bamboo stakes, so many of them. Well, what would happen, those police posts, like August 25th, the police posts might be manned by 5 or 10 army soldiers or police, or anyway, that only 5 to 10 people, and they would be surrounded by several hundred Bengalis coming in to raid them. If the barbed wire and all that, then they could get in very easily and kill, as they have done, the police post. Often, once they started their raid, they're all yelling, Allah Akbar! And they're getting through the fence. The police just barely have time to pick up their weapons and start firing back at them. And then, fortunately, most of the Bengalis would flee when the gunfire was coming towards them, because they have not. Fortunately, they would drop, and many would run away. The ones that were trained in combat, like Arsa, and those people, could stay and fight longer, but eventually most beat them back. But sometimes the police post was set afire very quickly, then the police have to run out of it while it's on fire and run into either being killed or escaping themselves. Villagers, when you interview them, when you get them to talk about the details of their escape, it's mind-boggling how they're woken up at 3 a.m. with attackers in their village. They run in the darkness. They get to a police post, a small one at that, and then that one is under so much falling for a reinforcement from another police post, but it's being attacked also. And then we have to run to the 3rd police post back here. So civilians come out. So troops are guarding the civilians as they're trying to run in the middle of the night from being slaughtered. Now they're in another police post, but after 2 days that becomes dangerous because things were still going on, and attacks were happening. Then they have to get a truck and get to another police post, a bigger one. It's crazy what was happening. Now on this trip, interestingly, also got a lot of good stories about other years when this same problem was happening. New problem. We have the 2006 attacks, the 2016 attacks, 2012, of course, which was huge, but we have all the way back to 1942, the big Mongdong massacre, which of course I've written about a lot. 30,000 or so Buddhists killed in Mon, and then 400 plus Rakhine villages set afire, and 100,000 people trying to flee to safety somewhere during World War II, all caused by the Bengalis, and they got their hands on the World War II weapons. And then there were people who talked about those stories, in Mongdong especially, but in Butitong also. Okay, so the Buddhists are fleeing out of Mongdong up and down the very steep Mayu Mountain. So they're getting to Butitong for safety, or so they think. And all of them have to kind of walk one way. There's only one road built by the British. A couple tunnels, and then they come down. Then there's a big Bengali village down there. And this story is incredible. It was told us how the Bengalis would say, oh, okay, you're tired, here, come eat with us, food, so put your weapons here if you have a sword or a stick or something. Put your weapons here, come eat with us. And then they're all slaughtered. It's true. They were slaughtered there by that ruse again and again. And then there's the boat sinking. There were 400 people were getting on a boat to evacuate Butitong to escape from the Muslim madness, and the boat overturned and sank. An estimated 400 women and children mostly drowned there. the stories go on and on. 1988, when on the anniversary of the two invasions, the 1942 massacre of Mong Da, on that anniversary date in 1988, a major attack on Mong Da City by about 50,000 Muslims came in various directions. A bridge called the Shui Zar Bridge, where that was the stopping point. The Rakhine had to massively stop the Muslim invasion. There was a very small police force, but they fired and they kept the Muslims from Shui Zar Bridge, because if they had won that and killed every Buddhist in town. That was the Shui Zar Bridge episode, if anyone has heard of that. Well, just near the Shui Zar Bridge, then we visited another Hindu neighborhood of Mong Da, where the Hindu minority live. They're surrounded by Bengali villages. They showed us their temple. It's a small temple, but a nice temple. But curiously, no big statues, with the Kali or Durga or so, multi-armed statues like you usually see in the Hindu temple. Nothing big. And they explained it, well, so many times the surrounding Bengalis just come in to trash the temple, break every statue, defecate on the floor, pee, urinate all over the place, rip up the holy books, burn things, break statues. It's too many times they can't even have a real statue there. So they have a picture of a statue, because at least a picture is a lot cheaper than a statue. And they feel kind of helpless there. They talk about the time then when they're surrounded and cut off, and the Bengalis around are just yelling and screaming so hard that they're all terrified. And they still are now. Went to another Hindu temple in Sitwe, that has a small Hindu neighborhood surrounded by wonderful people, very friendly, open. They showed us their temple. They have some nice statues, but also they expressed great fear at this feeling of being surrounded by the Bengalis, so that there's no escape route for them when things go crazy. Let's see, we got a couple of, the guys I was with, ARG organization, ARG, and Koba A is the head of that. Koba A and his team were helping us get through there, and they know everything. So we'd be on countless bridges in northern Rakhine or southern Mong Da, and they would point out, oh yes, this is that was blown up or partially blown up. Another one, and bridges there. They knew where the land, and this is the place where the landmine hit that truck. Okay, and early landmine hit the military truck. Okay, that's the place. Constantly pointing out these places where bombs or mines or bridge bombings or so on. And when there's one road that goes up there and you cut several bridges off, it's very isolated because there is no other way then around it for security forces to rescue people and for villages to try to escape. There were places where people were trapped for weeks because the bridges were out. And if there is no bridge, you can't go crawling down and back up where you can sink in the mud up to here in a second or two, You just can't do that, especially in the rainy season as it was in all this. So that's kind of a summary. That's the brief summary of the trip. It's mind-boggling how much damage there is around. Oh, I went to Udon in 2012 because the large group of thousands of them across the rice fields. This is one of the scenes that's been on a while since 2012. One of the scenes, so I recognize the place, but it is Udon there. And the Buddhists are coming out just to form a perimeter because the Bengalis are trying to set the village on fire. And